Welcome to the NWR Virtual Resources Series. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and up next we have White Rock Minerals. The ASX code is WRM. Joining me today is Matt Gill. He's their Managing Director. White Rock Minerals is a mineral resources exploration and development company, and they're based in Ballarat, but they've got projects. They've got the White Rock owned what they own. Matt, I've got all over the place. They own the Woods Point Gold Project in Victoria, the Red Mountain Project in Central Alaska, and the very advanced Mt Carrington Project, which is gold and silver project in New South Wales. To talk so much better than I can about the project, please welcome Matt Gill. Matt, great to see you.
Thanks, Kerry. Thanks for that interesting introduction. Maybe we'll work on that next time round. So look, thank you, thank NWR Communications and obviously the listeners for taking the time to hear the White Rock story. We do have the three assets, as you mentioned, and that's that front slide that hopefully everyone can see. On the left is the Woods Point Gold Project. That's the Morningstar Gold Mine. I'll touch on that. The middle picture is our project in Alaska, Red Mountain, and the photo on the right is our Mt Carrington gold and silver asset. So I'm just going to touch on each of those three assets in this presentation, and I understand that there is the opportunity for questions at the end of it. Yeah.
And I was just about to say, guys, if you're listening and you want to ask a question, just pop it in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen, and I'll relay that to Matt. So please go ahead and ask any questions. Thanks, Matt.
You'll find this presentation loaded onto our website, and also it will be released through the ASX. So I won't read every line in that disclaimer. I'll leave that to the reader to do their own research. As I mentioned, we have the three projects, and I'll touch on each. We have the Woods Point Gold Project, which we acquired through the merger with ASX-listed Austar Gold. Only about 6 weeks ago, we got the keys to that asset. So a fair bit of commentary today on that, and in fact some exciting news that we put out this morning. We've also got our Red Mountain high-grade silver, zinc and gold IRGS project in Central Alaska. We've had that for 4 years now. And our third asset, which White Rock listed on 10 years ago, the Mt Carrington gold and silver asset. So they're our three. Interestingly, Alaska is so far around the time zone that we get a really good overlap. It's not as bad as some of the other time zones. So while people might think, how can you manage a project from Victoria when you've got 40 people on the ground in Alaska, it actually works out quite well, surprisingly. So there's a bit more on each of the three. I'm not going to go through each of the dot points. It's really a summary of what I'm going to talk about. Woods Point, its land package, its exciting regional exploration potential and underground potential, and its great history in that regard. The Red Mountain silver zinc VMS, as well as its gold opportunities, a great land package, over 800 square kilometres there. And we just completed our 4th field season there. And Mt Carrington, which is advanced and being advanced by our joint venture partner, ASX-listed Thomson Resources. A Woods Point Gold Project. So that photo is the gravity separation plant at Woods Point. You can see the head frame in the background. It's the Morningstar Gold Mine. And so the acquisition came with 2 mining leases, all of this infrastructure, and a great land package, 670 square kilometres. Some people would say, why Victoria? Victoria has a great history of gold mining. I remember going to Diggers and Dealers and telling all of our folks in Kalgoorlie that there was actually gold produced outside of Kalgoorlie in a place called Victoria. It's produced over 80 million ounces in its time. It's going through a second renaissance thanks to the very, very high grade Fosterville gold mine. I worked at the Ballarat gold mine. Many people won't know about Bendigo, so it's got a huge history. And as I said, a bit of a resurgence thanks to success at Fosterville. As I mentioned, it's produced over 80 million ounces, and the Woods Valhalla Goldfield 6 million ounces in its own right. So we're in a great part of the world. We're only about 100 and so kilometres east of Melbourne, so very accessible as well. As I mentioned, going through this great renaissance, thanks to Fosterville, but Costerfield also, many people may not know, is one of the highest grade mines in the world as well. And Stawell is going through a rebirth as well. Just an interesting graph of the amount of ounces produced over time from Victoria. The original gold rush here in Ballarat, Bendigo, Castlemaine, dropped off, and you can see a great uptick just recently. So a lot of funding has flown back into Victoria, a mini ground rush in this part of the world. Given its history, it's not just all about Fosterville. It is about the other successes over time. We think we've picked up a fantastic land package where we're southeast of Fosterville, not dissimilar rocks, but not exactly the same. It's a large land package where the yellow tenement holding that you can see, and those red stars are some of the historical mines. That land package itself has produced over 1 million ounces historically. And as I said...
Sorry, Matt, that's an enormous land package. That was the deal that you've just recently done, is it? That came with it? That's
right. So the merger with Austar brought this 670 square kilometre land package. Mm-hmm. So all part of White Rock now, along with 2 mining leases, including the Morningstar mine and the gold gravity plant that I showed you a photo of previously. That's right, Kerry.
Why were they keen to do the deal with you? Sorry, Matt, I just think it's good land, isn't it?
I think it's a great address. I agree. I mean, I'm a proud Victorian, but I have worked elsewhere around the world, as you would know, Kerry. But I think to pick up an underexplored opportunity like this, with that sort of pedigree, that history, but also in a COVID world where even just operating projects interstate, let alone overseas, can be quite challenging. I think for the White Rock shareholder, coupled with the fact that Alaskan work is seasonal, it's our winter, their summer. So there are a number of reasons, and I've just covered one of the slides I'm about to get to. Why White Rock? Why we think it's a good deal from an Austar shareholder and an Austar board point of view. They could see that an expanded balance sheet, exposure to more than just one asset, was also a good opportunity for them. As you know, single company, companies with single projects can be sometimes a bit of a challenge. So I'd like to think, and we won't please every shareholder or investor, I should say, every investor. I hope to please every shareholder. So diversification, I think, is a good de-risking angle as well, Kerry.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Matt.
So some work that was done by Austar identified a lot of targets and some of those on mining lease. So we're now working away on what is required to get work plans done and to access some of what we think are almost literally walk-up drill targets regionally. Before I get to the regional story, though, the in-mine exploration focus is where we are right now. The Morningstar gold mine has a great production history. Most of those ounces came under the company called GMA, Gold Mines of Australia. This Morningstar gold mine was so successful for GMA. GMA was the forerunner to Western Mining Corporation, so WMC. So, this has got a great history, a great pedigree. You can see the number of ounces and at a fantastic grade. So there's already a shaft there. Below 9 level, it is flooded, but that shaft goes down 800 metres. And lots of workings, even in the upper levels of the mine, that has had recent production by Austar, and we're currently drilling there, and I'll touch on that a bit more. As I mentioned, the infrastructure that's in place, including the gold processing plant, it's the only one for miles and miles around that part of the world. So a great strategic asset as well. As I mentioned, lots of areas above 9 level that haven't had any drilling. A thing called the gap zone, and it's called that for a reason. There was little drilling in an area between 10 level and 14 level. I mentioned that there's the other mining lease as well, which has had past mining, a mine called Rose of Denmark. Only today, this morning, we released this information. We'd been drilling away at a thing called the Kenny's target area, and you can see some of the intersections that we've been getting. While narrow, 1 to 2 to 3 metres, some pretty spectacular grades, 2 and 3 ounce per tonne. That's the nature of high-grade nuggety gold quartz reef systems in Victoria. It will pinch and swell, but this is some of our initial drilling, and given that we've only had the keys for 6 weeks, we're really excited by what we've been able to kick off with. This drilling had commenced in around June. But we've got more areas, not just the Kennies, that we've got our eyes on above 9 level, and that will update the listener as we execute those plans as well. As I mentioned, we've got this thing below 9 level called the gap zone, and it was called the gap zone for a reason. It's very, very underdrilled. You can see the historical production above 10 level, over 500,000 ounces. We've then got this gap zone where no mining has occurred. And then below that, we've got another 200-metre section where over 300,000 ounces. So, you look at it, you go, well, it hasn't been drilled. There's been a lot of ounces above it and below it. So we're going to embark on testing to see whether there is anything in this gap zone. And that's an example of some of the drill planning on the right-hand side there. So again, as we execute these plans, we'll update the listener as we commence drilling that as well. So we think there's great opportunities in mine. Obviously, the listener will need to form their own view as well. So what do we think it brings to the investor? Certainly a bigger balance sheet, a good technical team, focused on the regional exploration in the in-mine. As I mentioned, given the COVID world that we're in, and it's only a 5-hour drive for us. All bar one of our employees is based in Victoria. So we're not like others that have to FIFO interstate or overseas. So we think that that's a great benefit for us as well. As I mentioned, the counter-cyclical news flow to Alaska, which really runs from May through to probably the end of this calendar year, given that we've still got a lot of assays to come, which we'll touch on. And I mentioned the larger company that White Rock now is. So the in-mine focus is on building up mineral inventory, so drilling these areas, building up a mine plan before we recommence. And the beauty of White Rock and this project, unlike many juniors that have great exploration ground, if they have exploration success, they're often challenged, how do they monetize that? Well, we can have exploration success, and we've got a gold processing plant right on our doorstep, right at Woods Point. So any success can be turned into that sort of revenue cash flow because it's on a mining lease and it's been commissioned and been run previously. But we see a great opportunity in the regional exploration land package, as I mentioned. Many targets, and that'll be our focus over the next couple of years. Always hard to do a valuation for the investor. There is an independent experts report that people can go and look at. There's a measure of where we are amongst some of our peers. We tried to pick just Victorian explorers, although having said that, Catalyst is a producer as well. But you can see where we sit. Kaiser Reef is also a producer at the A1 mine. So that's the Woods Point Gold Project. I'll move on to Red Mountain, which is our silver-rich zinc VMS and gold project. It's in central Alaska. It's 100 kilometres due south of Fairbanks, which is the second largest city in Alaska. Alaska has less than 1 million people, so it's a fantastic underexplored first world jurisdiction. It hosts some great deposits. Most people will have heard of Pogo, thanks to Northern Star's acquisition of it. I'll point out we were there before Northern Star realised how great Alaska was, just for the record. Many people will have heard of Fort Knox, run by Kinross. Many people will have heard of Donlin, which is Barrick's joint venture, 40 million ounce. And just recently, people may have noticed Nova Gold, ASX listed Nova Gold with a fantastic intersection, which just goes to show the elephant country that we're in as well. As mentioned, a great land package. We've got a maiden JORC resource on the silver-rich zinc VMS already, nudging over 13% zinc equivalent, or over 600 grams a tonne silver equivalent. So already high grade, and we've been drilling there this year as well. 3 great targets that we've got, and still plenty of drilling. Unfortunately, winter has arrived. but we've got the high grade VMS at the west. We've got VMS targets in the east, and we've got the very large last chance IRGS gold target in the west at the south there. So three great geological, so two geological domains within the one land package, a volcanogenic massive sulfide, silver rich zinc VMS, but also gold IRGS. So I think it's great to have one project with these two types. So we've got two options there. Some of the work we did this year, outcropping massive sulfides. We expanded our tenement package, having uncovered this Kiwi trend. So even though the season's fairly short, about 4 months in Alaska, we've got thousands of soils and rock chip assays still coursing their way through the assay labs. We did finish around mid-September, but we made 2 discoveries on the way. So, you know, in a short field season with 40 people on the ground, I think the team did an excellent job without incident, accident, on budget, and in a COVID world. So I mentioned the VMS, but we sit in this great Tintina gold belt, so the IRGS belt. And again, just to point out to the listener, you know, the Novo result, and they've had their project more than twice as long as we've had our project. We only announced this discovery in January last year. So a little bit of patience, but we think that, you know, this could be anything. About 5 kilometres from east to west, about 1 kilometre north to south. I'm a mining engineer, but I just tell people that this gold has to have come from somewhere. Our trick is to find where it's come from. So a lot of soils, rock chips, and some drilling that we did last year, really just sighter holes in something that is quite big. And so we're just at the very beginning of what this might be. And thirdly, Mt Carrington. So White Rock was listed with the Mt Carrington Gold and Silver Project back in 2010. It's got a JORC resource for silver. It's got a JORC resource for gold. It's got a JORC reserve for the gold. Past mining, you can see the photos on the right. You walk onto the gold pits. You walk onto ore. They're pre-stripped. There's a tailings dam already there. And we're fortunate we found a great partner in ASX-listed Thomson Resources, who under an earn-in and joint venture agreement are now spending their funds to advance the feasibility study and the environmental impact statement, all the while White Rock is free carried. The general terms of that are, as I mentioned, it is an earn-in where Thomson will now fund the DFS, the definitive feasibility study, and the environmental impact statement. Once that's done and lodged and New South Wales development consent is achieved, they can move to 51% of that asset, all the while White Rock is free carried. Thomson can move to 70% by paying White Rock $4.5 million in cash, and then it can go into development. All the while, the care and maintenance costs are being covered by Thomson, and there's also around $1 million of cash going into our treasury during the course of this joint venture agreement. So for us, it allows us to focus on our Woods Point Gold Project and Alaska, whilst moving Mt Carrington forward, so the White Rock shareholder maintains exposure to this gold and silver asset. And for Thomson, it unlocks some of their other assets that sit in and around Mt Carrington. So we see that as a win-win for both parties. So that, Kerry, and the listener, is White Rock, our 3 assets. As I mentioned, you'll find this presentation on our website, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yes, got a couple here, Matt. Thank you very much, Matt, and a very good overview of all 3. I hadn't realised with Mt Carrington, which was your original, that was the original part of White Rock, wasn't it?
Correct.
Can I just, when did you go in with the joint venture with Thomson Resources? And it sounds like it's quite good because you're free carried for as long as you want, and you still got 30% right up at the end of it.
That's correct. So we signed that joint venture agreement only in May this year, Kerry. And I agree with you. It allows Thomson to advance it. There's a joint venture committee. We're free carried while they do that, and we maintain exposure to all of that upside as well.
Do you have any exposure on the Thompson board? How's it working in that terms, or do you just trust them to be getting on with the job and leave them to it?
So we have a joint venture committee. We have joint venture committee meetings. Regularly every month. There's a monthly report, there's an activities report, there's a budget and program that's been submitted and approved. So it's regular and constant working together.
Okay, brilliant. Question here, you started out with 3 drills in Alaska, then it went down to what seems like 1. Can they have some detail on what happened to facilitate that? Was the money saved in the process? Was it I don't like the word fault. Was it a WRM issue, or was it the drilling contractor?
Yeah, look, we've advised the market previously, and we've been very open that we had a contract signed with a drilling company in Alaska for 3 drills. And we started off with 3, but we advised the market that during the course of the season, which is quite short, the drilling contractor struggled to hang on to his crews. And the dynamic there is that Alaska is a 4-month season, whereas in the lower 48, which is the rest of the USA, they can be enticed to 12 months a year drilling in Nevada. So the drilling contractor, despite us having a contract, was just unable to hang on to his crews, despite conversations we had about offering bonuses and pay and so on. So, look, it was unfortunate for the contractor, obviously, because they lost revenues as well. It was unfortunate for us because we were geared, ready, willing and able. But having said that, we still kept at least 1 drill going the whole time. We announced only a few weeks ago a 55% zinc equivalent intersection. So I don't think people can complain too much about that sort of success. I'm sure we would have liked to have done more drilling, but we made 2 discoveries. We've got hundreds of soils and rock chip assaying still going through the labs. And it's exactly that sort of work that discovered the large last chance gold system. So, for us, Kerry, it'd be nice to have instant, success, but exploration is exactly that. It's exploration. It's only our 4th season, and to be, in year 4, having expanded the original landholding from 15 square kilometres to over 800, and to have made the discoveries that we've done and some of the drilling we've done, whilst I know some people are a bit impatient, and it was a bit disappointing not to have had 3 drills, on balance, the team on the ground did the best they could in the circumstances.
And there's plenty, as you said, there's plenty of work to be done with the soil sampling and geochemical analysis that you're doing.
Correct. And the opportunities and the multiple targets are still there.
Yeah. Okay. What are the next steps for the project in Alaska? Is it just to get all this soil sampling done and then to work out where the drill bit goes next? How many drill rigs will you have going forward, do you think?
So the drilling stopped mid-September with the onset of winter. We've got all of these assays now that will course their way through the system. We'll then analyse all of that, which is what we did last year. And then we'll assess, what that information is telling us. Have we got more target areas? There are still plenty of targets that we weren't able to drill this year. And those targets from this year, we weren't able to drill last year. So we've still got a plethora of targets ahead of us. And we'll reassess and look at what we do next year. The beauty in some ways of an Alaskan winter is it allows us to analyse the data, not have to think on the run. We can analyse the data, consider it, plan, and then move forward. I think if there's one thing we did learn is to probably secure a drilling contractor this side of Christmas. We were looking at securing the contractor this year in February, even though we weren't starting until May. So we were looking 4 months ahead. Even then, maybe we need to look even earlier for next season.
And possibly not use the one that you're using. But anyway, I've got to get through these really quickly. Regarding Morningstar, are there any inventories of ore on the surface to be processed?
So in the financial accounts, I think the reader will find that there is there were some surface stockpiles. We're not processing them at the minute. There's not a lot to be considered there. We're focused on the underground exploration opportunities, and then we'll process what's there on the surface at the right time when it's economic and efficient to do so. So it's not material, Kerry.
Okay. Question for you. Why do you think there was that gap in the drilling at Morningstar? What was the reasoning behind that, do you think?
So originally, as you would expect, they started from the top down.
Yep.
Coming close to World War II, and there were some major bushfires in that part of the world, and then World War II. Post World War II, the Victorian government was trying to recreate an economy and employment. And so the shaft was partially funded to be sunk by the government. And there was a deep drill hole below the gap zone. And so they, with the government funding, sunk the shaft past the gap zone to where this drill hole suggested that they could restart mining. And so it's only for that set of circumstances back last century that left this gap. And when they got onto the mining below 14 level, they didn't see any reason to go anywhere else because they were mining hundreds of thousands of ounces in that zone. So it's left there for us to now drill test.
Could be pretty exciting times. Well, for a man that knows the Victorian goldfields extremely well, Matt Gill, I'm sure you know what you're doing, and Alaska's looking interesting. And isn't it nice that with Mt Carrington, you can say, get on with the work. That's a joint venture, but it's giving value to shareholders. We have run out of time, Matt. It's been great to see you. Thanks for the update on White Rock Minerals. Wish you all the best. And thanks for joining us at the NWR Virtual Resources Series today.
Thanks, Kerry, and thanks to the listener.
Cheers.